Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today I'm over in Lytham and it's a nice dry day and I'm sat behind the wheel of an Audi RS6, so as far as days go, I've had worse. I've borrowed this lovely RS6 from a friend of mine, Chris, at Morley Car Sales. I'll leave the link below to his website so you can have a peruse. The Audi RS6 is the high-performance version of the very practical Audi A6. So if you have a German Shepherd and Nick Freeman's number in your phone book, then this might just be the car for you. This thing is quick. I'm not talking just, 3 points and £100 fine. I'm talking 6-month ban and 100 hours of community service quick. Quick history lesson. The RS6 has been around since 2002, and in those 2 decades it's garnered a huge fan base. RS, by the way, stands for Racing Sport, or roughly translates to Racing Sport anyway, just in case you were wondering. This is a late 2014 and it's known as the C7 model. It was available from 2013 all the way until 2018. And if you're watching this from North America, then it's a case of look at what you could have had. Because for some strange reason, in the land of cheap fuel and miles of open highways, this car was never available in North America. The standard A6 Avant with a 4-cylinder engine is a very plain and frankly forgettable car. It's a chicken korma estate. Whereas under the bonnet of the RS6 there's a 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 which produces 560 horsepower and 700 Nm of torque. That transforms the chicken korma into a Vindaloo. The results are dramatic. I mean, 700 Nm of torque is a lot. In fact, it's so much as to propel this car from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. This is quite simply one of the quickest things I've ever driven, but thanks to its Quattro 4-wheel drive system, it never spins its wheels in a childish or aggressive manner. It just gets on with it. This isn't a showman like an AMG Mercedes or a BMW M5. This is like a professional assassin. There's really no sensible way to tell you just how fast this car is. If you so much as think about touching the accelerator, you're already past the speed limit. It makes you feel like Chuck Yeager. Every time you put your foot down, you expect to hear the sonic boom as you break through the sound barrier. What's very clever and perhaps a little misleading is that this car just feels like any ordinary, luxurious executive car. You get in it for the first time and drive it around town and you would never know what it's capable of. You have 2 pedals, a very standard automatic gear selector and a steering wheel. It's all very tame and safe. So much so I think my grandmother could drive it. As you drive this around town at 30 miles an hour, it just feels totally serene and quiet. Just like being in a 530 petrol. Inside the RS6 is all lovely. I've got a nice head-up display system which is really useful actually. Sometimes you won't believe the readout. You get a nice chunky flat-bottom leather-clad steering wheel that's really a pleasure to use. You get an automatic gear selector which vaguely resembles a Pro V1. And the seats themselves are lovely. They're very soft and supple and comfortable, yet very supportive, albeit a little bit chintzy. There's enough room inside for 5 adults. There's plenty of headroom, plenty of legroom in the back. It really is a great all-rounder, this car. And the boot is huge, 565 litres to be precise. That expands to nearly 1700 litres with the rear seats folded down. That's the sort of cargo space you just don't get in a supercar. Styling-wise, this is everything the standard A6 isn't. The standard A6 is fairly plain and innocuous and inconspicuous. The RS6 isn't. This is bulging and bursting at the seams. It just looks sinister and forbidding. It also attracts the wrong sort of attention. I'm not sure I'd like to own one. It isn't the kind of car that I'd like to leave on a train station car park, if you know what I mean. Best case scenario, you come back and it's on bricks because somebody's stolen those lovely 21-inch wheels. Worst case scenario, you get back and the whole car's missing completely. Now, ride-wise, you can opt for adjustable air suspension or standard coilovers. This one doesn't have the air suspension, and it rides really well. I'm in comfort mode. If you select dynamic mode, things start getting a little bit jittery and uncomfortable. But in comfort mode, it's perfectly acceptable. In fact, perfectly comfortable. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a Maybach 57, but it's certainly not a Mini Cooper JCW either. Yeah, in dynamic mode, the ride is annoyingly jittery. In addition to the suspension being adjustable, so is the steering. You can make it more weighted. Something else that's adjustable is the exhaust. You can actually make it louder. But what sort of oik would be impressed by that sort of juvenile behaviour? How immature. It's also a very safe car. It has a host of safety tech to keep you and your occupants safe. But crucially, they don't interfere like most safety gadgets do. They let you get on with it. Let's talk about running costs. Now, running costs will be high. That kind of goes without saying for a car like this. But they won't be any higher than any AMG Mercedes or BMW M car. Audi claim that you'll average 28 miles per gallon, but to be honest, I take that with a pinch of salt. Around town you'll get 17 or 18 miles per gallon, and on a motorway run you'll get 28 or 29, so you should average about 22 or 23 miles per gallon, which for a car of this type isn't bad at all. On a motorway cruise, if the conditions are right, it will shut down 4 of its 8 cylinders, so in theory you're running just a 4-cylinder. So it is possible to get fairly sensible MPG from this. Road tax here in the UK will set you back about £585 a year, which I know you'll think is expensive, but it isn't that expensive when you compare it to lots of other European countries, such as Ireland or the Netherlands. In fact, I think it's a bit of a bargain. Feel free, by the way, to use that excuse when you're trying to justify this to your wife. On to reliability. Now, I'm not being flippant here, but I really wouldn't worry. They're solid, well-built products with a very good reputation. Plus, logically thinking, if you can afford to buy one of these cars, tax it, fuel it, insure it, then the odd repair bill shouldn't catch you out. The same is true of any car, that you want to make sure that it's got 2 keys, good service records, and make sure it hasn't been completely thrashed. All you can do there and in is continue to maintain it and keep your fingers crossed. One thing to mention, some RS6s come with ceramic brakes, so if you do happen to buy a used one with ceramic brakes, they can be quite expensive to replace. There was never a manual gearbox on offer on this C7 RS6, just this 8-speed auto, which to be fair does a pretty decent job. It's nice and smooth most of the time, and quick to respond when you want it to be. Used prices here in the UK start at around £32,000. That's going to get you a 2013 model with quite high mileage. It is possible to get them a couple of grand cheaper than that, but then you'll be buying a write-off with DHL mileage. I would look for a nice, honest, original one that doesn't look like it's been tampered with good service records. For one like this is a late 2014 with 61,000 miles on the clock and full Audi service history. That will set you back about £40,000, which I know is a lot of money, but it's an awful lot of car, this. And the thing is, if you buy something like this and get used to it and learn to love it, what do you replace it with? It's one of those cars that I think you just keep for a very long time. Whenever I do these videos, I always try and think about how the car makes me feel, or more correctly actually, who it makes me feel like. And I think with the RS6, well, it's popular with celebrities. I assume it's the ability to get away from the paps quickly. Footballers love them, probably the same sort of rationale there. And the other group that you seem to see in RS6s are the high-ranking people that are involved in import, export and distribution. It does strike me as the car of choice for obnoxious vulgarians. The same sort of people who tend to buy SVR Range Rover Sports. And that might be something which puts off the likes of you or I. I think that pretty much sums up the RS6. If you're the kind of person who fancies a McLaren but really needs a Volvo 850, then the RS6 is the car for you. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. So yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time.